Hi, I'm Ruth Wilson. I'm here to talk to you about being a sacred human with superpowers. Now, what do I mean when I say sacred human? I mean what seems a fact to me that we are all human animals on this planet and sacred as well. And we all have superpowers that we don't use very much. Now, if you're like most people, you've been trying to use your superpowers, and you may have had varying results doing so. If you're like a lot of people, you've invested in yourself quite a bit, but you might wonder if you have something wrong with you because your success may be sporadic, if it comes at all. It depends. And if that's the case, you may feel like you need to improve yourself more and more. And outside of your own powers, the systems and the processes that we use, they're all changing so much, and the world is changing. So it can be a kind of a scary world when you start seeing that I don't know if I have what I need to succeed. I don't know if I have what I need to create what I want to create on the planet. Well, I'm here to tell you that you can transform into a sacred human. You can create what you want to create on this planet, and you can do so with way more consistency than you may believe. I've discovered that consistency myself, and I can tell you a little bit about what do we do to transform into a sacred human. You can transform by connecting to your genuine, unique purpose. You were put on the planet for a reason. I'm convinced of it. And you have what you need. You really do. But most of us are not taught how to align with it and how to use what we have. And some of the stuff we get taught doesn't really work. And so you have an inner genius that you might not be using, and when you learn how to use it consistently, is what I'm trying to say. When you learn how to consistently use it, life starts to unfold in really beautiful ways. And it seems like the planet or the universe supports you in ways that it didn't support you before. I help people practice identifying with the inner genius, with their inner abilities, and you have this power as well. We all do. You've probably always suspected that you have powers, and when you orient yourself in that way as a sacred human, life becomes satisfying and it becomes fun. I've known people to touch on the genius, their inner genius and their superpowers in numbers of ways. You've probably done so yourself. I've seen the person in the meditation group who finally got present enough that they started manifesting experiences that they wanted to have. They met the person they wanted to meet. They got the job they wanted. They sold their house, whatever it was. I've seen that happen. I've seen among my hypnosis clients, when we're doing peak performance, somebody will come in and want to be a better runner, or they'll want to declutter their house. They'll want to do something that seems very mundane, and yet once they get out of their own way and stop trying to figure everything out, they have wonderful solutions drop in their laps. Maybe they find the coach that they wanted. Maybe they discover the process they needed. Maybe they find somebody who helps them declutter their house. Whatever it is that they've been working and working to figure out, suddenly it works when they can get out of their way and let their superconscious mind and their intuition work for them. And also when they get get calmed down and in a state that is like a meditative state that is encouraging them to allow their higher powers to work. I've also seen people over and over again use intuition beautifully. I have taught intuition. I would say there's not a soul on this earth who can't do intuition and get very beautiful information, helpful information, and useful information on a consistent basis once they get used to working with intuition. The thing is, a lot of these powers work differently than we expect them to, and they work differently than our intellect. So they don't seem to be working sometimes when they really truly are. But we all have this ability, and I've seen people tap into it, and I'm sure you've probably had experiences where you knew things you shouldn't have known, where you had a near miss and somehow had a miraculous save from some bad experience, where something you had wrong with you healed and you don't know why. I mean, we all have some kind of experience where we know things we shouldn't know and we accomplish things that we shouldn't be able to do. And it's always wonderful, but you could do it more consistently than you may think. It's like a hidden treasure, and it's not taught to you in school, but you get hints. You get hints of this inner genius, and you get them all the time. When I was in college, I used to have this dream over and over again that I had jumped off the bus in a snowy downtown neighborhood and ducked down an alley in one of the worst parts of town. And when I got back into the alley, I found myself in a piazza, a beautiful sunny piazza with a fountain tinkling away and a beautiful sunny day and beautiful marble buildings. And I was just amazed. I would look around me and I would say, who knew this was in Cass Corridor? But I kind of suspected there was something magic in here. I kind of suspected that in all this dull ordinariness, there was something magic and wonderful. And I see that, I would have that dream over and over again, but you see that all the time. There's Harry Potter, the foster kid under the stairs who turns out to be a wizard. There's the ugly duckling who's really a beautiful swan. And if you're Christian and you've read the scriptures, you know that the greatest teacher, Jesus, told his followers, greater things than these shall you do. You'll do greater things than I've done. So we all get hints, and that wasn't a very subtle hint, that we have this ability, that we have the power to create more and better than we do, and more consistently. So, these abilities are not obvious, and so it's easy to get talked out of them, which is a problem. A lot of times we don't want to share this talk with people because it's woo-woo, they might not believe it. Truth is, there's enough science to really support all the superpowers, all the inner genius that I teach people how to use. So we get talked out of it, and yet we can learn to create. We can learn to use these powers pretty consistently for a much better life, for much more fun life, and to create what we were put on this planet to create. And it doesn't interfere with your other abilities at all. If you have a wonderful, sharp intellect, it works just fine when you use it with intuition. So what does it take? It takes practice, and it takes the right kind of practice to use these skills. The trouble is that a lot of the things that we rely on to create are powers that are not really obvious to us. Intuition is not super obvious until you start using it. Your superconscious mind works in ways that you don't see for the most part until you start realizing how they work and experiencing the results. So it takes some practice, basically, and it takes some practice that gets good results. What does it not take? It does not take 45 minutes of meditation every morning. It does not take being positive all the time. It does not take stifling your emotions. It does not take anything onerous, but it does take consistency and it does take practice. I would say it takes practice for possibly several months before there's a consistent difference. When you start using your intuition, when you start accepting that you have a connection to your source, when you start learning to get into your heart and function from your heart's intelligence as well as your head's intelligence, and you start doing those things on a regular basis, you'll get results in 10 minutes, I think. But from my own standpoint of getting consistent results on a reasonably regular basis, I would say it took me 2 or 3 months of really, really working to rely on my heart-centered energy, to practice my intuition, to keep track of what I'm trying to create, to make sure that I'm trying to create what is really right for me to create and not what somebody else thinks I should create. So that's what it really takes to do this. And I truly believe that we are put on this planet to create, and we have a purpose being here on this earth. And when we find out what it is, it gets to be quite fun and exciting to start pursuing it. And it gets really interesting to open up to all of your intelligence and use it all. It's quite an adventure sometimes, and it's very interesting, way more interesting than doing what somebody told you to do for work. I don't know about you, but my experience was that in college somebody told me, well, here's what pays right now, so go into a job that does this. And it wasn't too thrilling until I made it my own. So I think that this is I would say this is the way to live, and I coach people to do this. And I also think this is the way of the future. I think it's the next stage of human development, honestly. Our planet is looking pretty grim sometimes. We're having trouble getting along with each other. We're very polarized. It's helpful to come from the heart, and it's helpful to serve each other with our intelligence and our creations. But also we've got so many uses for intuition. Artificial intelligence, there's fake news, there's conspiracy theories, what's real, what's not real. The intuition gives you a much better take on what's going on in the world and helps you deal with it and take the information and use it for yourself. What what happens when you live as a sacred human? As I said, life is fun, and creations are exciting because they work. And that can be big creations, small creations. They're all pretty delightful. I'm a person who I carried around a lot of baggage for a lot of years. And when I started really working with my full intelligence, it it finally shifted. As I said, I worked with a lot of baggage. I took every class, every development program. I tried to change myself. I tried to improve myself. I tried to fix what was wrong with me. It felt like there was maybe something wrong with me. And once you learn a little bit more about creation and how to do it, and you get a practice going that really puts you in a good state of mind, life just gets a whole bunch easier. And I found that I was able to create a life that was much more enjoyable for me. As I said, within a couple, 3 months, I was doing much better than I had before. And, I have all the skills for it because I had been practicing these things all my life. I had been a manager. I've done sales. I've done hypnosis and coaching and energy healing, and I've taught psychic skills, and many of the things that I needed I was quite good at, but I had to put them all together in a way that really worked. So I invite you to look at some of my stuff, check out some of my meditations, and see how they make you feel. I will be adding things on a regular basis for using heart intelligence, but there are a lot of meditations that can help you get present. See what you think about the way you feel when you start getting into your intelligence in a different way. And when you start considering that you might be here for a reason and you might be able to create what you want and live that purpose. So thank you for joining me. Check out my meditations and find me on www.ruthwilson.org if you want to have a chat. I'd be happy to talk to you.